Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at how to write an article. Now this video has specifically been designed for anyone that's studying Functional Skills English Level 1 or Level 2. We're going to look at a little bit of reading and also some writing. It's all going to come together to work on the key skills for the course. First thing I'd like you to do is have a look at the statements and identify which ones were true or false about the course. So we have then, there are 3 assessments for each level. The reading assessment is harder than the writing assessment. You only sit an assessment once. The course is only 16 weeks long. You are marked on spelling in the reading assessment. And finally, after the assessment, you get your results straight away. I'd like you to think about as well, try and stretch and challenge yourself. What are you hoping to get out of the course? And are there any areas of English you want to develop? Now the reason why I ask this question is because it might be that there's a certain area within English that you feel like you're particularly weak on or that you need development on, and please do leave us a comment and actually try to engage with a little bit of a conversation so that we can help you think about the route that we need to get you in order to pass the course and to achieve your goals. Fast feedback. Check your answers against the ones below. So on the left hand side then we have our true statements, and on the right we have the false ones. So first of all then, if we go through the true ones, so the first one says there are 3 assessments for each level. So if you're relatively new to the course then you may not be aware of this. There are 3 different assessments. There's one for speaking and listening. This is often the one that gets done first because it's often the easiest one to sort out. Now this will be more of an informal assessment that's going to involve an actual presentation and as well as a group work task as well. The second assessment is normally the reading assessment, and then the final one is the writing assessment. So for each level, you'll need to complete all 3 components in order to achieve the grade. The second one, the course is only 16 weeks long. Now this is true in terms of the course that we provide, but it's not necessarily true for every single college or every single school that may offer functional skills. Typically, 16 weeks is just long enough to make sure that you can complete all 3 components, and also allows you a little bit of wriggle room if you do happen to fail one of the assessments and need to resit. For our full statements then, the reading assessment is harder than the writing assessment. Now this is actually up for debate. However, when it comes to writing, it does have an element of a little bit more difficulty to it, because you do have to think about your spelling and your grammar and your punctuation, whereas with reading you don't really get marked on your spelling, so it's a lot more to do with comprehension rather than actually applying some of the key skills. The next one, you are marked on spelling in the reading assessment. As we said previously, that's not the case. And the final one, after the assessment, you get your results straight away. Now it might be if you're doing your speaking and listening assessment, you will be getting your results straight away. But for the bigger assessments in reading and in writing, it could take a few weeks. So while you're waiting for that result to come in, it's really important that you make progress within your course and you jump onto the next assessment. So if you already completed your reading assessment, you then need to be thinking about the kind of skills you need to develop to make sure you can pass the writing stage as well. At the end of the video, you'll be able to recall key details about the course, understand how to read and analyse and create an article, and then finally apply your understanding to practice reading and writing skills for the Functional Skills Level 1 and Level 2 course. So the first thing we're going to look at today then is using discourse markers. Now these can be really effective whether it be your reading, writing or your speaking and listening assessment. And they can be broken down into 3 different types. So we have additives. So these are words that can add on to the current argument or line of reasoning that you're presenting. Next we have contrastive. So these are discourse markers that take conversation in a different or opposing direction to the previous line of argument. So with that we mean words like however or on the other hand. And then finally we have sequencing. Now this is really good when you're doing an extended piece of writing because it allows you to structure your writing and break it down into more organized sections and can really help you to actually express yourself in a fully concise manner. So what we're going to move on now is think about what kind of words you think will go with each of these definitions. You're going to see a few different examples of the words. What I'd like you to do is try and think what category might these move into. So you're going to have a number of discourse markers, and what we'd like to think about is which ones do they belong to. Are they additive, contrastive, or sequencing discourse markers? So here are our words. Now many of these might be the ones that you've used in everyday language. If you're not too sure what they mean, don't worry, because we will tell you the actual section that they'll go into. So we have words like firstly, secondly, thirdly, and in conclusion. We have conversely, similarly, however, on the other hand, whereas, moreover, and in addition. So if you want to pause the video here and go through it at your own leisure, please feel free to do so. We're now going to jump ahead and show you the correct order that these should appear in regards to the table. Class feedback. Check your answers against the ideas below. So again, we have our three categories then. We have additive, discourse markers, contrastive, and sequencing. So to start off with then, if we think about our sequencing discourse markers, we have firstly, secondly, thirdly, and in conclusion. So as I said previously, these are really important to use, especially if you're thinking about doing your big writing tasks, because this helps to actually organise your ideas. It's a really good way to mix up how you're going to start your sentences as well. Next, we think about contrastive. We have quite a few there as well. So the first one you think about, one of the most common, might be on the other hand and however. We also have whereas and conversely. Now all of these mean very similar things, so it's important to keep that in mind when you're doing your writing. If you've used the word however a number of times, it's really important that you try and switch it up and use a different word to express yourself as well. When we've got our additives then, this is a little bit more common. This is when we're adding on to our idea. So you have words like moreover, in addition, and similarly. So now we're going to think about an article. So what is an article and how does it apply to functional skills? Now generally speaking, when I first start teaching things like the writing component, I'll often start with an article because it's one of the easiest ones to get your head around. So first of all, an article. This is a piece of writing that often appears in things like a newspaper, a magazine, or other print or online publication. Now, when you're writing one of these, you're expected to use the following organisational features. It's also important to note that some organisations or some exam boards will go from calling this organisational features or also presentational features as well. So it's key that you're actually familiar with both terms of terminology. So when we write an article, you'll need to use the following things. So a headline, subheadings, and paragraphs. Now, things like subheadings can be really effective in helping you to structure your writing because it will actually help you to say what you're going to focus on in each paragraph. Every single piece of writing you produce should be written in paragraphs, so really there's not loads of different things that you need to think about when you have an article. It should make it a nice, straightforward and easy thing to do if you're just learning functional skills. Next, how does it actually apply to your functional skills course? Well, it actually has quite a big impact really because you will have to engage with an article in two different ways. So in the course, you'll be expected to be able to read and retrieve key information from articles. In the writing exam, you may be asked to produce one of these as part of your assessment. So the more experience you get with reading articles, the better really, because then you're going to be able to apply that not only to your reading skills, but also to the writing exam as well. It's important as well that you get used to this idea of organisational features. So these are things you'll need to include in the different forms of writing. So for example, now we've looked at an article, if you're going to write, let's say, a blog, a leaflet, or an email, these organisational features may differ. So it's important that you go through and you make sure you feel confident about each type. Look at the article and attempt the comprehension questions on the next slide. From pets to pets, the ultimate parent's nightmare. A recent study carried out by the RSPCA has reported that there's been a dramatic increase in dogs being abandoned in the UK, with a shocking 20% rise in the months after Christmas. This study highlights one of the key issues relating to the ownerships of pets. We all remember the slogan, "Dogs are for life, not just for Christmas." However, many households are now choosing to give up their furry friends just a few weeks after welcoming them into their homes. Poor training. One of the biggest issues that the report brought forward was the lack of care owners give to their pets, causing authorities to ask serious questions about their well-being. It is believed that 2/3 of owners know little about animal care before taking on the responsibility of a dog, while there are also many owners who simply refuse to train their dogs, stating simply, who really has time. Now if you need to pause the video at this point, please feel free to do so and go through it at your own time. We're now going to jump ahead to 5 key comprehension questions that's going to practice some of those key reading skills and help you to understand how to retrieve key pieces of information. Comprehension questions. Use the extract to respond to the following questions. Number 1. Look at the following words. Which one best represents the tone of the article? Now, if you're not too sure what we mean when we say the tone, really we're on about the actual mood of the writer. How is he actually conveying or showing how he feels about this topic? So the following words will include neutral, concerned, or amused. For our second question then, I'd like to support your idea with a quotation from the text. Now, if you're not too sure what we mean by this, a quotation is very simple to get your head round. All you need to do is look back at the text and provide a small piece of evidence to back up your point for question 1. Number 3. Identify where the writer has used a statistic. Now, if you're not too sure what we mean by this, a statistic is part of a really important acronym that we need to know for functional skills, known as DeForest techniques, and statistic is one of the key techniques as well. So if you're not too sure what we mean by this, do check out our other videos. We've got a specific video that goes through all of the language techniques that you need to know for functional skills. Number 4. Look at the line, who really has the time? What language technique has been used here? And the final one, number 5. Look at the line, there's been a dramatic increase in dogs being abandoned in the UK. Replace the word abandoned with another suitable word. Now, what I'd expect you to do here is spend around about 10 minutes looking back at the article and then back at the questions and just trying to work your way through some of these key questions. Now, if you're a little bit unsure about it or you're not quite sure if you've got the right answer, please do leave a comment below and I'm happy to get back to you as soon as possible. We're now going to jump ahead and look through the answers together. Class feedback. Check your understanding against the correct answers. So for number 1 then, we were asking what was the tone of the article. So the first one would be concerned. And this is a little bit difficult when you go on to number 2, when you're thinking about actually how can we support this idea with a quotation. You have several different options you could go with based on the text. So answers may include, but not limited to, dramatic increase. So think about why they've said that. Now, an article tends to be quite neutral. Generally speaking, they're not supposed to pick a side really with an issue, but the fact that they've said dramatic increase would imply that the person is feeling quite concerned about it. We could also use the quote key issues, lack of care, and many owners who simply refuse. Number 3. Identify where the writer has used a statistic. So you could actually have 2 different answers for this one. So firstly, we could say a shocking 20% rise, or you could go with 2/3 of owners. Now, if you're not too sure what we mean when we say a statistic is simply when you're using numerical values to actually prove a point. So it's essentially a fact with numbers. So this can be a percentage, a decimal, or a fraction. As long as you're using one of those, it would still count as a statistic. Number 4. A rhetorical question has been used in the line, who really has time? So indicator there would be the fact that it has the question mark. A rhetorical question's purpose is to actually ask a question without receiving an answer, but you want the audience to really consider the issue that you're trying to bring to light. And number 5, the other words we could have to replace the word abandoned, we have left, dumped, ditched, etc. So even though it's not on there, you could also have a word like disowned. The real key to this kind of question is to read back through the line with the word that you want to replace it with and see if it just makes sense. Next lesson. So what we're going to look at in the next lesson is we're going to build on the same kind of skills that we've looked at within this reading part, and we're going to look at how to actually produce our own article based on the kind of things that we've covered in this lesson. Secondly, you're going to understand how to craft an effective response. Again, we're going to be thinking a lot more about the writing component, as that is often one of the hardest parts to get through. And finally, you're going to apply your understanding So write in response to an exam style question. If you need any additional support or help, then new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, leave us a comment, like and subscribe, or check out our partner channel Bookworm Teaching for more lessons and guidance on all things English. Thanks ever so much for listening, guys, and all the best with your work and revision in the future. Bye bye.